Hi, Margot. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so glad that you could talk with me. Margot Burns is a career coach.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today, Leslie, and I'm looking forward to telling you and your clients more about what I do.
Yep. So the reason why I wanted Margot to talk today is because there's often times when I have couples come to mediation, they want a divorce, and they've set their family up where one person is the breadwinner and the other person has stayed at home and really devoted a lot of their time and energy to raising the family. And so when they see themselves now splitting into two different homes, it's a really scary thing for both. The person who hasn't been in the workforce, who hasn't really been working on their career, how do they transition? And I know you can share with us how you help those people, but it's also scary for the person who is the breadwinner, and how are they going to be able to support both houses in the same manner that they were? And is that really an expectation? So feel free to
Sure.
share with us, how you do that.
Well, yeah, and all of those concerns make perfect sense. You know, divorce is one of the biggest times of upheaval for a family. And, I'll start with the person who's been a homemaker, for instance. And I would say that I've worked with both men and women in that situation. Most often it's women who have had an established career, or perhaps have never had a career and have devoted themselves to staying at home, you know, keeping the house and managing the household and the children and the children's schedules and everything that goes along with the job of being a homemaker. And a lot of times these women have really lost a lot of confidence in what they believe they are capable of doing back in the workforce. They may have had a really demanding career prior to having children and have no interest in going back to, a 70-hour work week or a lot of travel. And so professional coaching, the kind of coaching that I do, is this really integrated approach to helping, not just a homemaker, but anyone transitioning through a difficult period or making a change in their career, to help them find what they're best suited for, what kind of career makes the most sense to them in terms of their values and their temperaments and their interests.
Right. So when they go through your process, I don't know if it's you help them figure out what it is they might like to do, what it is they might have some skills or education as a base for, and then can you take that and are you really able to direct them down a path, knowing what education they might need, what kind of money they could expect to make? I mean, tell me a little bit about that, because that seems to be the thing that produces the most anxiety, is not knowing how to get there.
Right. And again, that makes so much sense. And yeah, so my background is actually in vocational rehabilitation counseling. And so for many years, I've done vocational evaluations and still do them for sometimes cases in which there just isn't any agreement on what both parties can earn. But in the case of coaching, I still will look at a person's background, their education, their kinds of work that they've done before, maybe the volunteer work they've done since they've stopped working, and really look at, well, what skills are still useful and transferable to other kinds of occupations? What kind of skills updating might be necessary? And, is something like going back to school in the cards? And so all of those considerations are really important to make. And to consider how quickly do they need to return to the workforce. I mean, some people have the luxury to take the time and really go through a process of coaching to, explore not just their interests, but really their core values and why they want to choose a certain career and what's the most meaningful for them, and really dive in. And other people need to get a job and need to get it fast. And so, I can do both. I can take the more lengthy, more in-depth approach, or I can have a very practical and, speedier approach for somebody who really needs to get back out there into the workforce and start supporting him or herself.
That's excellent because yeah, we definitely will see two different kinds of situations depending on the family, and it just can present a lot of challenges. Do you work with both the husband and the wife to help them both get on board with this kind of an idea? Because I know it might be the person who's needing the help, but do you also kind of help the other spouse understand how this process works and to see the advantages of them working with you?
Yeah, that's such an important part of it. And the more both of them can be on board with the process, the better it's going to work. Um, if this is, for instance, say the husband has been the breadwinner and the wife has been a homemaker, which is what we see most often, or what I see, and he's forcing her to, or really pushing this on her, that's not ideal. I mean, both parties really need to be bought into the idea of coaching, because it costs money, it's an investment, and while it can ultimately save money in the long run or be a really good, like I said, investment, it's really important that whoever's being coached really is invested in it and wants it and is motivated for the coaching process. And if that's not the person who's paying for it, the person who's providing the funds really needs to also be supportive and understand that it's a process. It's not an overnight process, and that to be supportive in that regard.
Yep, that sounds right. So can you tell us a little bit of how you would work with a client, kind of that speedy result? Is there something like a couple of sessions? Would it just be a couple of hours with you, as short as that, be able to get some information, move on, and give some recommendations? And then the longer one, I'm sure, but tell me a little bit about how people would work with you tangibly. What would it look like?
Sure. So a shorter session would probably be more like 4 sessions. So 4 different times, either in person in my office, which is in the Washington Park neighborhood, or via a video Zoom chat or on the telephone. It can work any of those ways. And to focus on, very specific goals, really get a clear idea of, here's your strengths, here's what you need to work on, here are the steps you need to follow, and, things like getting a resume up to speed and practicing interviewing. I mean, that can be a couple of sessions for somebody who hasn't interviewed for a job for 15 or 20 years. The thought of going back out and interviewing is terrifying. So, and for somebody who hasn't looked for a job for a lot of years, and maybe has never done the whole online process, I mean, it's all new to a lot of people who are coming back into the workforce. So the shorter career coaching focuses on all those things in a more intensive way. When I have more time for the coaching process, it can be anywhere from 8 to 12 sessions, and we still cover all the things that I just talked about, but with more emphasis on, taking more time and more care, and talking about values and, approach to work. And, you and I have talked about the system of growth and self-awareness that I use, called the Enneagram, and we might use that to really explore, well, what is your communication style and how do you prefer to work? And, so it goes just more in depth, but it still covers all of the basic career coaching transition skills.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the thing to point out too is that oftentimes this cost, whether it's the short or the long road, and what that cost is, can get built into a divorce settlement. So when we're doing mediation, we can even talk about that when we talk about maintenance, because maintenance is rehabilitative. It's to help that person that hasn't been, in the workforce get up to speed. And this can be built in as part of that cost and go towards an investment in that whole piece and save people time and money, just equalizing both homes' incomes and the cash flow in both homes. So when I've seen this work most successfully is really when they can both get on board with this, they can structure it around part of their settlement, use some of their marital funds for this, and not just have the lower income earner worry about this later on their own. If we can pull you in early, it seems to work so much better.
I really agree 100%. And it can be, I mean, even if the funds are there through a settlement, um, returning to the workforce after a period of absence can be very daunting and really scary. And to have the support of somebody like a professional coach and a career coach really facilitates the process and helps it go more smoothly in a more organized fashion. A lot of people have an idea of, well, I want to get to point B, here I am at point A, and yet they have no idea how to get to point B, or it's so overwhelming that they, it just feels like too much. And to have a guiding hand along the way can just be so helpful.
Yep, exactly. And that's why I'm so glad that you're here today telling us what you do, because to be able to see you in person or through this video and get a feeling for what you do, and it's just so worthwhile. And I've just seen it be so successful in so many instances. And thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad that I can be available to do this.